doing I'm Every Woman, Shaka Khan, No One, Alicia Keys, I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor.
In the world of soul music, Aretha Franklin stood as a towering figure whose name brought both respect and admiration from fans around the globe. Known as the Queen of Soul, she was much more than just a powerful singer who helped define music for an entire generation. She was also someone who fiercely protected her artistic territory, which sometimes led to conflicts with other musicians throughout her legendary career. This story explores the complex relationships between Aretha and 6 different musical acts who reportedly had tensions with the Queen of Soul. The woman behind classic songs like Respect and Natural Woman was known for having high standards and a strong personality that sometimes clashed with other major artists of her time. Aretha once reportedly said in an interview that she considered herself the queen and didn't compromise on her standards. She believed there was real soul music, and then there was everything else. This strong belief in what soul music should represent apparently created some conflicts with other musicians during her long career. These musical disagreements weren't just personal disputes. They revealed deeper issues about what makes music authentic, questions about cultural appropriation, and debates about what soul music should truly represent. The stories of these conflicts show us not just personality clashes, but important conversations about music, culture, and respect that were happening in the music industry. The Rolling Stones controversy. One of the most surprising conflicts was reportedly between Aretha and the Rolling Stones, the famous British rock band that helped define rock music for many people. This tension went beyond normal competition between musicians and touched on deeper cultural issues. The problems apparently started during the 1960s when British bands were becoming very popular in America. According to music journalists, Aretha privately told people close to her that she felt the Rolling Stones were taking blues music from Black American artists and using it to become famous. She reportedly felt that their success overshadowed what soul music should really represent. What bothered Aretha wasn't just that the Rolling Stones were successful, but what their success meant. While she was putting her heart and real-life experiences into every song she sang, the Rolling Stones were finding huge commercial success with what she reportedly called borrowed authenticity. She felt they were copying Black artists, rather than creating something truly original. In 1968, Aretha reportedly told a magazine that there was a difference between real singers and imitators. She said that while some people might confuse the two, audiences always know the difference. People who knew the music industry understood that these comments were directed at Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. The conflict apparently reached its peak in 1969 during a backstage encounter at a music industry event. People who were there claimed that Aretha deliberately ignored Jagger when he came over to compliment her performance. She reportedly turned away and made comments about the difference between real soul music and what she called rock and roll cosplay. The Supremes rivalry. The tension between Aretha and the Supremes was particularly interesting because both were successful Black artists, but they represented different approaches to soul music. The Supremes were a glamorous trio from Motown Records who reportedly saw Aretha as a threat to their carefully crafted success. The conflict began in the mid-1960s when Aretha was making her transition from gospel music to soul music, while the Supremes were dominating the pop music charts. According to music historians, Diana Ross, the lead singer of the Supremes, is privately called Aretha, a church singer trying to play in the big leagues during a record label meeting in 1967. What frustrated the Supremes wasn't just Aretha's talent, but her growing reputation as a more authentic soul voice. While Ross and her group were perfecting their polished pop soul sound designed to appeal to mainstream audiences, Aretha was earning praise from critics with what Diana reportedly called old-fashioned gospel shouting that sounds unprofessional. Diana Ross reportedly told a magazine in 1968 that there was a difference between entertainment and just letting loose emotions. While she didn't name specific artists, people in the music industry knew she was criticizing Aretha's more emotionally intense performances. She suggested that some singers needed to learn the difference between recording in a studio and performing in a church revival. The tension exploded at the 1968 Grammy Awards after-party where both groups were present. Witnesses claimed that Ross deliberately ignored Aretha when they were introduced. Ross reportedly said loudly enough for others to hear that she didn't understand why everyone was making such a big deal about basic church singing. Aretha never forgot being dismissed as just another gospel singer, and she apparently never forgave those who tried to minimize her artistic abilities. The Beatles' complicated relationship. The relationship between Aretha and the Beatles was complex and went beyond typical competition between musicians. Despite being the world's biggest pop stars at the time, the Beatles reportedly had some dismissive opinions about the Queen of Soul that they didn't share in their public interviews. The tension began in the mid-1960s when both acts were dominating different sides of the music scene, the Beatles in Britain and Aretha in America. According to Beatles historians, Paul McCartney once told a small group of journalists that while Aretha was incredibly talented, she was too intense for mainstream audience. He reportedly said that her success proved that raw emotion could only take an artist so far without proper pop sensibility. What bothered the Beatles wasn't just Aretha's vocal power, but what it represented for the future of popular music. While the band was perfecting their harmonious pop sound and innovative studio techniques, Aretha was achieving critical success with what John Lennon reportedly called gospel histrionics that make people uncomfortable at dinner parties. Lennon allegedly told a music magazine in 1967 that great music should bring people together, not make them feel guilty about their problems. While he didn't name Aretha directly, he suggested that some singers mistake volume for emotion and pain for profundity. This reflected a fundamental difference in how they viewed music's role in society. The rivalry became more apparent during the cultural changes of 1968 when both acts represented different philosophies about music's social role. At a London music industry gathering, witnesses claimed that McCartney politely but coolly dismissed suggestions that the Beatles should collaborate with Aretha. He reportedly told a producer that they were trying to spread love and joy, not remind everyone how difficult life could be. Despite the Beatles' massive influence on popular music, they never publicly embraced Aretha's more confrontational approach to social issues. Even decades later, when discussing influential vocalists in interviews, they notably focused on smoother voices like Diana Ross and Dusty Springfield, rather than acknowledging Aretha's undeniable impact on music. The Bee Gees' disco dispute. The conflict between Aretha and the Bee Gees represented a clash between traditional soul music and the emerging disco sound of the late 1970s. The Australian brothers reportedly felt disrespected by the Queen of Soul during disco's most successful period. The problems began in the late 1970s when the Bee Gees were at the height of their success with the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, while Aretha was struggling to adapt her sound to the disco era. According to music journalists, Barry Gibb approached Aretha's management about working together on a disco-soul crossover album, but was dismissed without serious consideration. Barry reportedly took this rejection personally. A former record executive later told music magazines that Barry felt like Aretha looked down on disco as inferior music, and this attitude drove the entire Gibb family to frustration. The situation was made worse by Aretha's reported comments to a music magazine in 1979, where she said that disco producers were just taking soul music and adding drum machines, asking where the heart and struggle had gone. The feud intensified as disco began dominating the music charts, and soul music purists started taking sides in the debate. Despite the Bee Gees' massive commercial success and undeniable vocal harmonies, Aretha reportedly told magazines that what they were doing was commercialized soul, and that certain pop opportunists were watering down black music for white audiences. Aretha never forgot what she saw as disco's appropriation of her musical heritage, and she apparently never forgave those who she felt profited most from this cultural borrowing. This conflict reflected broader debates in the music industry about authenticity, cultural ownership, and the commercialization of black musical traditions. Fleetwood Mac's sophisticated opposition. The rivalry between Aretha and Fleetwood Mac was particularly interesting because it represented a clash between raw emotional expression and polished sophistication. The British-American rock group reportedly viewed Aretha as a threat to their carefully cultivated, refined image. The conflict began in the mid-1970s when both acts were competing for chart success and critical recognition. According to music journalists, Stevie Nicks privately referred to Aretha as too heavy for mainstream audiences, and believed that Fleetwood Mac's polished harmonies were superior to what she reportedly called gospel shouting that makes people uncomfortable. What frustrated Fleetwood Mac was Aretha's continued critical acclaim despite what they saw as less sophisticated musical arrangements. While Fleetwood Mac was creating intricate pop-rock compositions and achieving studio perfection, Aretha was earning reverence with what Lindsey Buckingham reportedly called raw emotionalism that lacks proper musical structure. Stevie Nicks allegedly told a British music journalist in 1977 that there was a difference between passion in music and overwhelming intensity. While she didn't name names, she was clearly referencing Aretha's style when she suggested that some singers mistake volume for artistry and pain for profundity. The rivalry reached its peak during the late 1970s awards season when both acts were nominated in similar categories. Instead of finding mutual respect through their shared success, the competition reportedly deepened their mutual disdain. At a 1978 Grammy after-party, witnesses claimed that Nicks deliberately avoided being photographed with Aretha, allegedly telling her publicist that she wouldn't be overshadowed by that kind of heavy energy. Led Zeppelin, the ultimate betrayal. The most significant conflict was reportedly between Aretha and Led Zeppelin, the British rock legends whose alleged dismissal of Aretha cut deeper than any professional rivalry. This tension made their rare public encounters feel like carefully managed diplomatic meetings. The conflict began in the late 1960s, when both acts were rising to legendary status through very different musical approaches. According to former record executives, Robert Plant privately told associates that Aretha was too one-dimensional for rock audiences, and that her approach to blues music was stuck in church traditions when it should be reaching for cosmic experiences. What made this feud particularly hurtful was its cultural implications. While other conflicts were mainly professional rivalries, this one struck at the heart of musical appropriation and respect. Aretha reportedly felt that Led Zeppelin had taken the blues foundation that she and other black artists had built and turned it into what she called bombastic rock theater that forgot where it came from. Aretha allegedly told a magazine in 1971 that there was a difference between paying homage to the blues and just taking without asking permission. While she didn't name specific artists, she was clearly referencing Led Zeppelin's blues rock approach when she said that some people think volume equals soul, but the ancestors know the difference. This conflict represented the ultimate betrayal for Aretha, being dismissed by artists who had built their empire on the musical foundation that she and other black musicians had created. The tension was so significant that even decades later, when Led Zeppelin was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Aretha's congratulatory statement was notably absent from the ceremony materials. The broader implications. These conflicts reveal important themes that went beyond personal disputes between musicians. They highlight ongoing conversations about cultural appropriation, musical authenticity, and the proper recognition of black artists' contributions to popular music. Aretha's reported conflicts with these acts weren't just about personality clashes. They were tortuous. He presented her fierce protection of soul music's cultural significance and her insistence on proper respect for its origins. The stories also show how different musical philosophies could create lasting tensions. While some artists focused on commercial appeal and mainstream accessibility, Aretha remained committed to emotional authenticity and cultural integrity. Her reported conflicts with these successful acts demonstrate her unwillingness to compromise on what she believed soul music should represent. These rivalries also reflect the complex dynamics of the music industry during a time of significant cultural change. As rock, pop, disco, and soul music evolved and influenced each other, questions about authenticity and appropriation became increasingly important. Aretha's position as the Queen of Soul placed her at the center of these debates, making her both a guardian of the genre's traditions and a target for those who might have felt challenged by her uncompromising standards. The legacy of these conflicts reminds us that behind the glamour of the music industry, there were real artists with strong convictions about their craft and culture. Aretha Franklin's reported feuds with these 6 acts reveal a woman who was not only a phenomenal vocalist, but also a fierce protector of her musical heritage. Whether these specific stories are entirely accurate or not, They reflect the very real tensions that existed in the music industry as different artists and genres competed for recognition and respect. In the end, these tales of musical rivalry show us that even legends like Aretha Franklin had to fight for recognition and respect throughout their careers. Her reported conflicts with the Rolling Stones, the Supremes, the Beatles, the Bee Gees, Fleetwood Mac, and Led Zeppelin demonstrate that success in the music industry often came with complex personal and cultural challenges that extended far beyond simply making hit records.